Thank you to my colleagues, especially Senator Marshall, for bringing this thoughtful solution. Mike, thank you for being here, for your incredible work advocating for the religious freedom of the people who are, while we're advocating for the religious freedom, they're actually willing to die for ours. It's quite a remarkable thing when you think about it. You know, sometimes in this job I find we're pretty good at complicating simple things. Occasionally we oversimplify complicated things. And I try hard not to do either. But the elegant solution that Roger has drafted in this bill, I think, strikes the perfect balance. It simply states that there should be nothing less than an honorable discharge for somebody who has taken the oath, stood in the gap, and makes a decision, a religious decision, or for any other reason, to not get the COVID-19 vaccine. What's different about COVID-19 vaccine versus the other vaccines that you agreed to take when you took the oath is that this one came after you took the oath. It's not an unreasonable request. Now, why does it matter so much to me, in addition to serving with Roger and on the Armed Services Committee? And Roger, thank you. Yes, Senator Schumer, let's bring the NDAA to the floor. It's time. It's long past time. It's because I've been hearing from my constituents that serve. I've been hearing from the moms of some of my young constituents who serve. They're very concerned about this. It's not a trifling matter to them. This is not just sort of a macho standoff. This is heartfelt, conscientious, liberty issue. I mean, this is a big deal to them. But so is serving. And so there's a lot, there's always a lot of area between, the front end and the back end of things. But this one's really simple. And I think it strikes the right balance. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Kelly with Fox News. I have a question. The OSHA rule that was released this morning just a few minutes ago. I want to get your initial reaction on that. There's a penalty of $14,000 in some cases that may be enforced against small businesses who are out of compliance with getting all of their employees vaccinated. Wanted to get your initial reactions on that, and if it will, exacerbate the labor shortage that our country is.
I'm happy to. As you know, a lot of businesses have been preparing for this rule since the president was pretty clear about it in his previous statements, his press statements. And the worst part about it is that every employer has to prepare for the worst case scenario just in case this day happened, and it did. As you know, we're preparing a Congressional Review Act. Republicans are, and going to be offering that. That will allow us, upon the completion of the rule, to immediately bring a privileged motion to the floor and object to it. I don't know how many Democrats will join us, but any Democrat that has paid even a little bit of attention to what's gone on the last couple of days in this country, particularly in Virginia and New Jersey, ought to be getting the picture. If inflation wasn't clear enough, if a workforce shortage wasn't obvious enough, then at the very least, the election results should have been obvious enough for them to backtrack. Clearly, they haven't. So we're going to do what we can to stop it. I've heard from lots of employers and, frankly, a lot of employees. I was just down at the border. I was down in McAllen at the Rio Grande Valley border last week. The sector chief there told me, and of course these are federal employees, he's going to lose 20% of the Border Patrol agents at a time when we have a surge of illegal immigration. There are real consequences to this stuff, and it is beyond me that there's not somebody with a little bit of economic competence in this administration that understands that, if not just common decency.
Yes, sir.
Eric Rosales with EWTN News Nightly. Thank you so much, Senators, for holding this. First question I just have is, with the Air Force in particular, they've received 5,000 religious exemptions, and so far they have granted 0. Your reaction to that?
Your question gets to the heart of the matter. And I mean, I think it's pretty clear the Department of Defense has no intention of issuing any exemptions for religious purposes. I mean, I think they've basically stated that, and that's what the main reason we're here. But I want to just think for a minute. What kind of a person is willing to stand in the gap for their friends? Scripture tells us, right? There's no greater love as a man than this, that he'd lay down his life for a friend. That's a pretty strong religious statement. These are the kind of people who make these decisions to sign up, to serve. They have a servant's heart. And then to disrespect that servant's heart with this kind of a rule just violates all kinds of common sense and ethics and great traditions of our great country. And so we're at a bit of at an inflection point, to say the least. This is one issue that I think is the inflection point of the governing philosophy of this country. But what Roger has done with this bill, this is why I call it elegant, because so we have some pretty hard feelings about some people in the DOD and the chain of command. But what this does is it doesn't necessarily criticize the chain of command. It takes this burden from them. There are times when we need to give our commanders flexibility, and then there are times when we need to prescribe. One of the great things about the exceptionalism of America is that our military is led by civilians. And people that elect those civilians are the people we respond to. We have different jobs. Whether you carry a weapon, fly a jet, sail, whether you have stripes or stars or eagles, their job's different than our job. And our job is to set policy, and occasionally that policy needs to be very prescriptive. This bill is very prescriptive, and I would think every commander, because remember, at the end of the day, there's only one commander, and that's the commander-in-chief. So everybody else is carrying out his orders. And so the Congress of the United States has this opportunity in the National Defense Authorization Act that needs to come to the floor. We're already dangerously late. No other country is waiting on us, certainly not our adversaries. And this is just one more thing that's one more reason why we need to pass the NDAA, so that we have a ready, deployable, committed military that's adequately paid, compensated, and knows that we have their backs. Yes?
Just a quick follow-up question,
Sure.
if I can.
Yeah.
You talked a little bit about how this is going to have a direct effect on the number of people who want to even serve, who are in the military right now, who want to continue to serve. But do you think that is the ultimate goal when you're looking at the bigger picture of the Democratic Party, when you look at the spending for defense?
Yeah. So I have a hard, I try to avoid getting in the heads of other people or impugning their motives. I don't know what motivates them. But it's hard not to be a little bit cynical when you consider the threats in our world. You guys, in case we hadn't noticed, China successfully tested a hypersonic missile recently that orbited the entire Earth, a missile capable of carrying a nuclear warhead and capable of avoiding our detection. They're not screwing around. And by the way, they don't care about their men and women that wear the uniform. They just order them to do it. And so you do sort of wonder, what is your goal in all of this? I want every mom and dad in America who has children to be proud if their child should make a decision to join the military. What I don't want is every mom and dad in America advising their children, whatever you do, don't join that outfit, because they're going to strip you of more liberties than you're willing to defend. I think it has a real readiness component to it, and whether or not that's the goal, it certainly is what's being accomplished if we're not careful. Yeah.
What I understand, you can only be dishonorably discharged if you're court-martialed. Are you suggesting that people who are refusing the vaccine are being court-martialed?
Daniel, this is why the prescription's so important. Sure, you carry out the worst case scenario, and we're just taking that worst case scenario off the table. That relieves the commanders, it relieves the Department of Defense, it relieves even the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff from making a different decision. And they should be relieved with that relief.